Welcome to Personal Development Mastery Podcast, episode 87, which is a special episode. It is the ending of the first year of the podcast, and I wanted to do a quick reflection, an annual reflection, and share with you, because you are the one that has brought the podcast to where it is at the moment. So I want to say, first of all, that I have been blessed and grateful over this first year of the podcast to have spoken with over 70 exceptional people from different walks of life, like people like authors, Tony Robbins trainers, university professors with PhD, TEDx speakers, shamans, spiritual teachers, mentors, healers, Broadway performers, all kinds of people. And as I said, I've been blessed and grateful to have these conversations with them. The podcast, as we speak, is closing to 10,000 downloads in 72 countries around the world. So, which means that 10,000 times someone started playing an episode of the podcast. And for this, I thank you very much for listening and for enjoying the podcast. I wanted to reiterate at this point the intention that I had set when I created Personal Development Mastery Podcast a year ago. So my intention was at that time, and it still is actually, that I wanted to have these conversations with fascinating people from different walks of life, but could be leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs, authors, and with these conversations, inspire you, the listener, to take some action towards improving your life. And that has always been and still is my goal. I want you to take an actionable item once you listen to the podcast and you find it valuable. Start implementing an action. That is, I believe, something that is often missed in personal development. It's not about the knowledge. There is abundance of knowledge. So I'm not adding more knowledge to the table or to the world of personal development. The knowledge is there. What's lacking many times is the implementation of the knowledge, and this is my intention with Personal Development Mastery, to create these actions, these deeds, this implementation of different elements that can really make a difference for you to improve and change your life, really. So, some realizations I have made over this first year is one of them is actually a question that I have asked most, if not all, of my guests, and that was this question about going back in time and meeting your 18-year-old self and being allowed to give him or her one piece of advice. And it is one of the most interesting questions for anyone to answer, and I would urge you actually to take some time and answer that question for yourself. So if you could go back in time and meet your 18-year-old self and you could give him or her one piece of advice, what would you tell him or her? It's I have found very many similarities in the answers that people have given me, and I think in a way it kind of distills some of the most valuable learnings that we have learned with hindsight from our life's experience, and trying to convey them to, not necessarily to our younger self, because we can't go there, but to others. And I think that is a beautiful thing. It's some wisdom that we have collected over our life and our experience. So one other thing that I wanted to do in this reflective episode is go quickly through the episodes, the conversations that have been the most popular, and just go quickly through some of them and discuss about one or two major learnings that I had, and I hope that you had as well. And one other reason that I'm doing it is that I realized that when a podcast has a bunch of episodes, so 87 in this case, it's difficult to listen to some or many or all of them. It takes lots of time. So I will, with this reflection of these, or reiteration, if you want, of these episodes, I would like to give you the opportunity maybe to relate to some of the episodes, some of the guests, and go back and listen to them. So the first one I wanted to start, and it was one of my very first interviews for Personal Development Mastery, is Ryan Gottfredson, who spoke about mindsets. Ryan is, apart from a professor with PhD in the university, he's a mental success coach, and he specialized all his working life on mindsets. And he has a very scientific approach on what mindsets are. And I think that is one of the basic foundations of anyone who wants to grow and improve their lives and go down the journey of personal development. Because our mindsets, the way we think or the way we choose to think, is really the foundation. Everything else starts from there, arguably anyway. So Ryan, in the episode about mindsets, talked about the 4 sets of mindsets that each of us has, and in a very scientific, easy to understand categorization. So he talked about fixed versus growth mindset, which is, I think many people are very much aware of the terms, but he also talked about the closed versus open mindset, the prevention versus promotion mindset, and the inward versus outward mindset. And he described what these sets of mindsets are and which ones we need in order to be successful, to develop. So a fantastic and elementary, I would say, it's foundational episode, Ryan Gottfredson, about mindsets. The next I wanted to give a special mention is the episode with Allan Kleynhans, who is a Tony Robbins trainer, and I had the pleasure of meeting him in person on a few occasions at the Tony Robbins events as well. And Allan was actually the first episode of the podcast. Apart from my introductory episode, it was the first guest that I featured in the podcast, and the conversation was fascinating because of Allan's story, but he also talked about important things such as guilt and shame, spiritual psychology, gratitude and forgiveness. And It's a fascinating episode. It is up to now, it is the most popular episode of the podcast. So I would certainly recommend that you go back and listen to it. It's episode number 2, Allan Kleynhans. Next episode is actually the one that followed with Dr. Wasi Saleem. Wasi has again a fascinating story because he did something that many people would like to do, and that is to change career. And Wasi in particular trained to be a medical doctor in USA, so he has, if we can say about anyone that his career was set in stone, really Wasi's is a great example of that. But still he realized that this was not serving him, it was not what he wanted to do with his life, so he changed career, changed identity, and one of the most important takeaways from that episode was his visualization technique and process. And he described in that conversation how exactly he used visualization, and he actually said that it is our God-given gift or God-given tool that we must use, really. And he has had amazing results from using visualization, and he described the method. So listen to that episode. I think you will find some very powerful techniques which you can use in your everyday routine and your everyday life to attract things that you would like. The next episode I wanted to mention was my conversation with Emma Estrela, who is a Wim Hof instructor. She's actually the number 1 female Wim Hof instructor in the world, and I had the pleasure to have a conversation with her, having had some experience of the Wim Hof method myself and the ice bath a couple of years ago when I went to Wim Hof's event in London. So the conversation with Emma was revealing in terms of some of the elements of the Wim Hof method, and in specific the breathing techniques, the breath work. And one highlight of that episode was that Emma did a mini breathwork practice live on the podcast. So if you would like to experience a small part of the Wim Hof method, especially the breath work, tune in to that episode with Emma, and I will link all these episodes in the show notes for you to find them easily. Next one I'm going to mention is a very unique episode, and that was with Toni Jehan, who is a spiritual teacher. Earlier this year in 2020, I went through a process myself called soul realignment, which, if I can overly simplify what it is, it cuts off any karmic debts that you might have with the past. Toni Jehan was the practitioner that did the soul realignment process for me, and I found that so intriguing, utterly fascinating. So I had a long conversation with her for the podcast, which was actually split into two parts. And Toni talked about the spirit. She talked about our true life purpose, about the team of spiritual guides that we have, even if we're not necessarily aware of them, about the planetary shift that is happening. It was an intriguing conversation, probably not for everyone, but if you find any of that which I mentioned interesting, then I will direct you to Toni Jehan's episode. It was a truly fascinating conversation. The next one I have in line to mention, and this was really one of my personal favorite ones as well, was the conversation with Rob Scott. Rob is a master level mindset coach who had to overcome some tremendous abuse and adversities in his past, both emotionally, mentally and physically. And we talked about the fundamental shift that he had and how people can change their identity and literally become someone new if we decide. It was a conversation that really, I believe, can speak to your heart. So again, that's split in two parts. So listen to Rob Scott's episode. I would certainly recommend it. It's one of my most favorite and I believe useful conversations that have big potential to impact you and make a difference. The next one is the episode with Sophia Vasiliou. This is actually such an interesting story. Earlier in this year, I read The Biology of Belief, the book by Dr. Bruce Lipton. It was one of the most important books I've ever read in my life. It took me just a few days to devour the book. I couldn't put it down. And if you are not familiar with Dr. Bruce Lipton and The Biology of Belief, then the podcast with Sophia is a great place to start. And actually that's how I came across Sophia. After reading the book, I wanted to do some kind of work that Bruce Lipton was recommending to do. So Sophia was one of the practitioners of a process called Psych-K, which I undertook, which again, to overly simplify what it does, it allows you to go into your subconscious and change some limiting or disempowering beliefs. So the conversation with Sophia was intriguing. I had this conversation after my Psych-K process. Another thing that I was very much intrigued about Sophia was that she did a 3-year shamanic apprenticeship in Peru, and she was in the Ayahuasca Foundation. So we talked about shamanism, ayahuasca, healing, apart from Dr. Bruce Lipton. So one of my favorite episodes, there is some immense knowledge and potential in there for you to pick some real gems of wisdom and things that can inspire you to see things differently. So really recommend this one. The next one was the celebratory episode number 50. And that was for me most certainly the best person that I could have given the opportunity to celebrate the number 50 episode with. And that was Renée Marino. I know Renée, I have met Renée through the KBB, the Knowledge Broker Blueprint course, which I have done and she has done as well with Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. And Renée is, apart from a communication coach, she is an energetic person. She is a Broadway performer, and she actually starred in the Hollywood film by Clint Eastwood, Jersey Boys. So we had a fascinating discussion, and we talked about the myth of overnight success. We tend to see at someone, look at someone after they have achieved something. We believe that it was easy for them to get there, and Renée and everyone else really proves that this is not the case. There is no such thing as overnight success. It takes years to become overnight success. So we talked about that. We also talked about being mentored by Clint Eastwood, this iconic person in the film world. And of course, we discussed communication, we discussed Tony Robbins, and probably one of the highlights of the episode was when Renée sang the incantation that Tony Robbins does. Every day and every way I'm getting stronger and stronger, but she sang it. So it's a very different way than listening to Tony Robbins scream it. So a fantastic episode and celebratory number 50. Check it out if you haven't. I can promise you that it will uplift your spirits. The next one, and again one of my favorite episodes, it was actually the first time that my guest brought tears to my eyes while we were having the conversation, and that was Robert Quinn. Robert is an exceptional gentleman. He's, among other things, he has published 18 books, and he has spent his life and journey really living a purpose-driven life. And that was really the living a purpose-driven life was the topic of our conversation. And one thing that I remember very much, and it was a highlight, was his having a life statement, and for him was just 3 words: inspire positive change. And how these 3 words, by being imprinted on him and allowing him to live his life based on this life statement, inspiring positive change, truly fascinating perspective. As for the end of the episode, his words towards me were so touching. It was incredible. He really brought tears to my eyes, and I remember saying that on the podcast. So one of my personal favorites as well, Robert Quinn. And I got 2 more. One is the episode that really became very, very quickly the second most popular episode of the episode. And I mean, it was a massive hit, a massive success, I would say. And that's the one with Andrew Kapp. Andrew is the author of the best-selling book, The Last Law of Attraction. The Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, which made me say that this podcast episode is the last podcast episode about the law of attraction you'll ever need to listen to. So obviously that was what the conversation was about, the law of attraction. What can it do for you? Do you actually need to believe it for it to work? How to do it? How precise you need to be doing it? If the law of attraction is not working for you, what are you not doing? And some methods and techniques that are particularly powerful and as short as 5 minutes a day that can really change your life by allowing you to implement the law of attraction into it. So Andrew Kapp, certainly recommended. And the last, but by no means least, a great person, Stephen Doran, the author of the best-selling book Burn the Bullshit, the NLP trainer, and Stephen is an overall fascinating guy. This conversation was one of my favorites. Again, it was quite philosophical. We talked very much about our beliefs, confirmation bias, how our beliefs really dictate what we perceive to be reality. We also talked about success, money mindset, empathy, sleep, and how it's our habits about sleep are direct correlation to our success. And also we discussed in particular two of the challenges that Stephen has in his book about as he calls it, daring to break free from the prison of self-conscious restraint. So an exceptional episode, or two in two parts actually, with Stephen Doran, and I will certainly recommend that you go back and listen to that one as well. So that's really, these were some of my key learnings or reiterations from some of the most popular episodes of the first year of Personal Development Mastery. Again, I want to thank you very much for listening, for being here with me, for supporting the podcast. I want to wish you a healthy and impactful 2021 with personal development mastery. And I will ask for a little favor. If you would like to support my podcast, I would really appreciate if you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That would mean a lot to me because it allows the podcast to be heard by many more people. So I appreciate you very much. Thank you for listening to this. Thank you for being a supporter of Personal Development Mastery, of listening to the podcast, and feel free to reach out to me, email me, agi@agikeramidas.com for anything that you want. I promise that I will be on the other end of the email and respond to you personally. So until next time, stand out, don't fit in.